Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spotlight with Scientists in School, where we shine a spotlight on some pretty amazing people. Today, we are going to interview American book author Ruth Spiro. She has written little books, but with very big concepts. Titles like Baby Loves Aerospace Engineering, Baby Loves Coding, Baby Loves Green Energy, and according to Ruth, when babies are throwing food from their high chairs, they're not doing it to irritate us. They're actually testing out theories of gravity. So stay tuned for this conversation. And at the end of the interview, I will let you know how you can enter for our book giveaway on Instagram, all details of how you can win a copy of Baby Loves Aerospace Engineering. All right, lots of exciting stuff ahead, so stay tuned. All right, hi everyone. I'm Betty Bakopoulos, and I am delighted that today I'm having a conversation with book author Ruth Spiro, who's written Baby Loves Science, and these are books about science, big concepts for little minds. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much, Ruth. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, this is really exciting. I was saying earlier, I just absolutely love your backdrop. That's a lot of books.
Thank you. Well, so what happens is when you have a book that's published, your publisher sends you author copies when they are finished.
Yes.
And ready to go. And so I just keep adding them to the stack. And what's really fun is they've started selling internationally.
Oh, so that's exciting.
They're in 8 different languages. And so I have copies of Greek and Turkish and Russian and Spanish and Polish. And so that's really fun to look at them too.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to have to pick up a Greek copy now and send it to some of my family. So congratulations on the success of your books. Your books have won numerous awards. I was reading, you've got the Writer's Digest Award, LA Times Hottest Books. You're in the top 20 for Best Children's Book on Amazon. How did you get to writing books? What inspired you, and especially books about science for babies?
Well, okay.
Is it a long story?
There's a couple of questions in there. So I started writing for the first time when my daughters were little. I have two daughters, and they were very, very young. Like, I don't even think they were in preschool. And we were reading books every night. And the more you start reading, you get ideas for stories.
Right.
And actually, my very first book that was published is this one, Lester Fizz Bubblegum Artist. Yeah. And it was inspired by something my daughter said when she was 6. And she said, "Mom, wouldn't it be really cool if I could blow bubbles like that guy at the birthday party who was making animals out of balloons?
Right.
And what if I could blow a bubble with bubble gum shaped like a dog?"
I
thought, wow, that is a really good idea. So I played around with that and came up with a story for this. And it's about a boy who blows bubbles in the shape of art, and which is vastly different from science.
Right.
Although I did a lot of research into glass blowing to learn about how glass blowers blow life into their art, you know.
That is so interesting.
That was the first book that I ever published. And then I had a little bit of a dry spell in between. I was doing a lot of actually freelance writing, like for Family Fun magazine. And then the idea for the science book came when I was reading the New York Times, and there was an article in 2010 about how picture book sales were way down. And they were attributing that to the fact that a lot of parents were bypassing picture books for their small children in favor of what they thought was more sophisticated reading material. So they were reading them chapter books and Harry Potter, you know, so we're very, very young kids.
Right.
And there's a lot of benefits to reading picture books with children developmentally.
For sure.
And I was talking with some writer friends, and I just sort of jokingly said, well, what do these parents want? Quantum physics for babies? And when I said it, it was a joke.
Yeah, people chuckled, I'm sure.
Right. And the more I thought about it, I was like, well, okay, what if I wanted to take very complex science ideas and turn them into a very simple board book?
Right.
And that was kind of where the idea came from. But I didn't want them to be a joke, because that could have been like a humorous, you know, quantum physics. I thought, well, how can I make these valuable? And how could I make these something that parents would really want to buy for their kids, and that little ones would really like? So before I even did any of the science research, I did a lot of research into child development. to learn about how babies acquire language, to learn about what's a good read aloud for small children, what's developmentally appropriate at different ages. And that gave me a better idea of what the books should look like and what they should include, what the language would be like, and how I would distill those science topics into something that really would be developmentally appropriate for very small children. And then what I did was I kind of layered them so that you can read the books with a baby.
Right.
And a baby might not understand, all the concepts, but you can look at a page like this,
yes.
and you can just start with, here's a bird.
Here's a bird.
Here's a baby and eyes and so you can start with the very basics. And then a toddler can understand the story a little bit more. And then by the time kids get to preschool, they can understand about the airflow of a wing and how a bird actually flies.
And it's introducing all that language. That's what I found interesting in reading your books. It might not be the first time they hear mass, like when they're in school, they've already heard it. Or you've got some real, the one about hearing has some, cochlear implants, like you've got big words in there, but there's nothing wrong with exposing that kind of language at a young age. It stays in there. Right?
Exactly. And there are all these studies that show that the more words children hear, the richer their vocabulary becomes.
Exactly.
And the fun thing too is, as a parent, I love, Good Night Moon, but how many times can you read that book over and over?
A million. The answer is a million.
Right. So I thought, well, wouldn't it also be nice if these books appeal to parents and that parents would also learn a little something too? Every single one of these books contains information that I had no idea.
So let's talk about that. You don't have a science background. So I found it fascinating because you've taken some very complex topics like thermodynamics, quantum physics. And I find people by nature, we make things more complicated in our lives. And you had to do the exact opposite. You had to take something that is quite complicated and make it really simple. Like, how do you do that?
So there's this very interesting concept that I learned about, which is called the curse of expertise or the curse of knowledge. Meaning, if somebody is an expert and they try to explain something to someone who is not familiar with the subject, they have a very difficult time doing that because they don't know what that person doesn't know. They have all this background knowledge. They
assume you know it. They assume the person knows it. Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
So with these books, I have no background in physics and science and all of these fields. So I am learning right along with my reader.
Right.
And I do extensive research into each topic. And I make big folders full of, I like to have things in print. I like to print things out and highlight them and circle things. I'm just very tactile in that way. And so I do a lot of research into the science so that I can understand enough of it to know what is important and what's the most important idea of aerospace engineering or of gravity. And then I link it to something that a small child would be familiar with. Everything starts with an everyday experience, whether it's going to the park and watching a bird fly, or dropping crackers from the high chair to watch them fall, or seeing an apple growing on a tree. Every one of my books starts out with
familiarity, something that you're familiar with.
And then it sort of brings in, well, what's the science behind this?
You don't realize sometimes as a parent that science is everywhere, right? So they're in the bathtub, toys are floating. That's science, right? What floats, what sinks. Or then I started thinking about babies playing with blocks. And it's the same idea. That's actually some good engineering concepts there, right? So a baby wants to build a tower that's tall. He tries it several times, right? He's testing things. And then sooner or later, he realizes the biggest block's got to be on the bottom. And you can fast forward this to grade 3. We have a topic at Scientists in School for grade 3s called Structures Stable and Strong. It's the same concepts as blocks. The concept's the same. We just change the language. The kids realize, you know what? You have to have the widest base at the bottom. Really, that's the biggest block. It's the same things, right? So it's nice looking back at all the activities babies do, and then you write about them in your books.
So one of the books is structural engineering,
Right.
which is about, you know, having the foundation and the walls and the roof and the forces that are acting on the structure. Sure. Yeah. Oh, so I was talking about not having a science background.
Right.
So basically, I am discovering these concepts right along with my readers, and I'm trying to figure out what is the most important part of this. You know, if I'm talking to like a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, right, what's the most important thing that they would be able to understand? And then the nice thing is, because we want to make sure that these are completely accurate, we do have expert reviewers that go over every book. So I'll write the text, and then once it's approved, we will send it to an expert. He or she will review that, and then, you know, I end up having to make changes most of the time or clarify things. Right. And then after the illustrations are done, we also send it to an expert reviewer to make sure that the illustrations are accurate as well.
And the illustrations, they're beautiful. They're visually stimulating. Like, I just love them. And there's, I think, probably science behind having a baby for baby books.
Well, yes. I mean, talk about the illustrations, you know, this is how we smell.
Yeah.
Right. And that Irene Chan, who's the illustrator, was able to, you know, take elements that are in the body and make them pretty, but also accurate, is really just amazing.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely beautiful. I also like something else that you talk about, that when you expose these books and these concepts to young children, even babies, you're getting at them before they have preconceived ideas that they're not good at science. So our workshops, for example, we start at the age of 3, because that's when they enter school. But this is great to start this even earlier. They start talking about science. You know, science is cool. I like science. I can be a scientist, all that kind of language, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, which is really nice.
And it's important for little ones to see kids that look like themselves.
Yes.
Looks.
Always.
And to see kids doing things that are science or engineering.
Right.
It's just, like you said, it's important for children to be exposed to this at a young age. When I was growing up, I was intimidated. I thought science was something that other people did. You had to be really smart to be involved in science. And what I've come to learn is it's everywhere. Science explains so many things that and that's one of the goals that I have with the books, is for little ones to not be intimidated or afraid by science, and to just find it interesting and cool, and to ask questions. And, you know, why does this, if I drop a cracker, why does it fall? Or if I'm building with blocks and my tower is toppling over, what can I do to make it stronger? Or, you know, how does that apple grow on the tree?
Exactly.
And so I take questions that kids might have and explain that, hey, look, there's science behind this. Right. And I think that does kind of remove the intimidation that they might have later on in life, because it's in their everyday world and they're becoming comfortable with that.
Yeah, that's what I always love asking children, you know, what does it mean to be a scientist to you? And it's always, do you ask a lot of questions? Yes. Well, scientists look for the answers, right? And we do a lot of tests, a lot of experiments, and, you know, they get really excited. It's really wonderful. Yes. I want to actually, you mentioned the word engineering, and just quickly touch upon, there is, I think it's June 23rd. It's a day that celebrates women in engineering. And you posted a photo on Instagram with several book covers. I think one of them was A Baby Loves Science. You also did your other book, Made by Maxine. And if I could just, that one, the other book. And if I could just read what you wrote, because I thought it was brilliant. You said, these are not girl books. Girls need to see characters like themselves in STEM books, but it's important for boys to see girls in this role as well. Can you comment on that post, how that happened?
Yes, absolutely. Because we do see a lot of times, you know, people, or parents or anyone will see a book that has a girl on the cover, and it's like, oh, this is a girl book.
Right.
But that's not necessarily the case, because stories are stories,
Right.
and it's important for boys. So this Made by Maxine, it's about a girl who solves problems by tinkering and hacking and coding and building and engineering things. And that's how she solves problems, right? This is her room, and she makes new things out of old things. So she repurposes and recycles. And so she's creative, but not necessarily with, coloring or crafting. It's creativity in a STEM way. And I think it's important that boys also see girls in these roles, because eventually some of these boys are going to grow up to be gatekeepers in the field, right? They're going to be working at engineering firms and architecture firms and software developers. And boys need to see and become comfortable with the fact that these are not just boy things.
Right.
They're everybody things.
They're everybody things.
Perfectly, it's perfectly wonderful when girls are also involved in these activities. And so it's important for boys not to develop that idea that, oh, well, that's a girl and this is not for her, this is for me. And so I felt like it's really important for teachers and librarians and parents not to just say, oh, there's a girl on the cover of this book, therefore I'm going to hand it to a girl. I think it's really important for boys to see girls in these roles as well.
Exactly. Was there a topic that you found that was just, oh my gosh, this one's too hard to simplify? Like, was there a science topic you said, oh my God, I can't do this one?
There hasn't been one yet that I said I can't do. I was really surprised when I started researching the Five Senses books.
Oh. And
got into, because it started with a question of, what is sound? Right? Like, I can hear sound, but I can't see it. What is it?
Yes.
And that it started out with music, and as I started to do the research and learned about, vibrations and frequency and sound and waves and molecules, I was like, this is so cool. And then when I got to the point that I learned about, well, what happens when it gets to our ear, and how does our ear work to translate that into sounds that your brain hears, and I thought it was fascinating, but it really took a lot of research on my part. And the same thing with sight. Right. Why does something look the color that it is? How is, and then getting into, smell and taste and touch, and just realizing how amazing our bodies are, that they perceive these sensations, and things are turned into electrical signals that go to our brain.
And the feedback and all this stuff. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So these took me they took a lot of hours. I'm not going to say they took a long time, because we kind of condensed the process once. We started with the book about hearing. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to do hearing, then we really should just do all the five senses, right? So my publisher was like, yeah, that's a great idea. When can you have them done?
Sounds like a publisher, eh?
Right. So we ended up, the hearing and sight came out last fall, and then smell and taste and touch just came out yesterday.
Oh, exciting.
Yes. So these were probably the most challenging so far. Just in terms of like the whole process, and also because there's so much involved, it was really, really hard to condense everything down to 10 spreads in the book.
Right. Well, I read the one, the hearing one, and I found, yes, baby loves hearing, but that one you could certainly read it to toddlers and preschool children over and over again.
And I have heard from teachers, like, because it's baby loves, or there's a little, that they say, oh, I can't, bring this into my classroom. But actually what I do when I do my book events and story times and things, what I say when there are older children in the audience is I'll say, you know, it's not for babies, it's about a baby.
Right.
The little baby couldn't understand this, but you can.
Right. Yeah.
So let's follow the baby as the baby discovers all of these things. And so when you frame it that way, they're like, oh, okay. You know, it gives them that feeling of being a little, you know, ahead of the game.
Yes.
But, yes, I have had that a little bit of resistance to, you know, because really a lot of these concepts are things that teachers are working on in kindergarten, first grade, even second grade.
Oh, you keep going. You're constantly just building on the same concepts, right? Adding a little more. So it's wonderful to start with these.
And my daughter actually sent me a screenshot of a Snapchat that her friend sent her, in which a college professor was reading the book about quarks to a lecture hall of college students.
Oh, that's funny.
That he, you know, used this as an opportunity to explain, you know, what quarks are, in a chemistry class.
Well, that just shows you how good you are at simplifying a very complex topic. I have found myself with these books saying over and over again, I wish they were around when my babies were actually babies, because they're not babies anymore. These are just fantastic. So what has this journey meant to you personally? This whole experience, getting into the world of STEM and promoting such wonderful literature for young children?
What really has been rewarding for me is, excuse me, when I am tagged on social media by parents whose children are reading my books and who are bringing my books into their cribs with them at night and sleeping with them, or asking them to be read every night. Or when a little girl who looks just like this is saying, this is me in the book, because she doesn't see herself in books often enough. It's just been very rewarding, because I'm in my office here and I spend most of my days in here writing and working and all this. But then when I send the books out into the world, you don't really know where they are or what's going on with them. But then when people give me this feedback and send me pictures or send me emails about what my books mean to them, it's so incredibly rewarding to see how what I'm doing may be impacting a child.
That it's making a difference. And social media has made that so easy to connect, right? Taking pictures and sharing, and for sure, it would be very, very rewarding. I know you write a lot, but what do you read? Do you do a lot of reading?
Ooh, you know, it's funny that you say that, because honestly, I've only started picking up books again and reading for pleasure over the last couple of months. I have been so busy with deadlines and getting these books written that everything that I've been reading has basically been research, you know, background and learning about these different topics. So I've only recently started, you know, reading some, like, you know, just sort of fun novels and, you know, summertime beach read kind of books.
Yes, yeah, we all need those sometimes
to get my mind off of things. But yeah, I have very varied tastes in terms of reading. I mean, I really enjoy reading nonfiction. I like reading about business and marketing and just the world in general. But then I also, you know, enjoy reading just a fun novel.
A fun beach read. You have to. After you read about quarks and thermodynamics, you got to lighten it up a bit.
Yes, and just so you could, just as an indication of how far behind I am in my reading list, I'm just in the middle of reading Where the Crawdads Sing, which I think
I love that. I finished that book. It's excellent. And you know, that one's very science-based as well. There's a lot of great science in that book, right?
So that's what I'm in the middle of right now.
Oh, it's excellent. I love that book. This has been such a pleasure. When your books came to my attention, I just was dying to interview you. We just, I think it's just so important, like you said, to have kids as young as possible saying I can be a scientist, actually saying I can be anything, right? There's just no limits. So yeah, this is just wonderful. And yeah.
And let me just add, can I just add one thing?
Sure can.
You can still be interested in science and technology and all this without necessarily even going into those fields.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like STEM isn't not just a subject, it's problem solving, right?
Yes.
And I think that we can use the ideas that are in science and technology and math all the time. It's there are things all around us, and I think a lot of this is about learning to use those concepts in everyday problem solving.
Absolutely.
So I don't want people to just say, oh, if I'm interested in science, I will read a science book. It's helpful in so many different, you don't want your bathtub to overflow, right? So you know that if you get in, it's going to, the level's going to go up. So just in everyday, these concepts are important to know. And I just want kids to be familiar with it and look around and ask questions and explore.
Absolutely.
And know that so much of what they see every day is related to science.
It is. And you know what? I couldn't agree more. I think kids and adults, you have to constantly stay curious. There's just so many things out there that you can just ask questions. And you're right. It doesn't have to be a career, but you can certainly take an interest in it.
Exactly.
Now, I have exciting news for people who might want to know about Ruth's books. You can find these books in stores, online, independent bookstores, big bookstores. But if you would like a copy, we're doing our first book giveaway with Scientists in School. All you have to do is head over to our Instagram page. Our handle is @SciInSchool. And you have to do 3 things. Follow our page, like our post, and tag 2 friends. And your name will be entered for a draw for aerospace engineering. And also, we have a crowdfunding page because, as you know, we're an educational charity and we need funds to continue to provide enrichment possibilities to all children. So check out our crowdfunding page, Stand Up for Future Scientists. Tune into our other interviews on Spotlight with Scientists in School. And a very big thank you to Ruth for coming on the show. This has been so amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.